This is Mark McNease, and you're listening to One Thing or Another, Interviews and Conversations. Welcome, everyone, to the One Thing or Another podcast. This is Mark, your host, on the last podcast of 2020. It's an ending, but it's also a beginning. I have not done these for a few months because of the crazy world we're living in. Everything else has just been sucking up my time and my attention. But I'm going to be coming back with these in 2021 with a new commitment and a new focus. So it's an ending, but it's also a beginning. We'll be ushering in the new year with more interesting people for me to talk to and bring to you and introduce you to. My intention with this podcast was always to find people who do things that I find engaging and that I can learn about. For my final podcast of a year that has been like no other, I dug into the archives for a conversation I had with my sister, Cathy McNease. She's a Master Herbalist. She taught Chinese medicine for many years. She sees patients out in Santa Barbara. She lives in Ojai, a little town called Ojai, California. But I used to have these conversations weekly with her and record them and share them with people. So this one is about winter. Things we can do in a cold environment, things that we can eat to help us stay healthy, and to address things like seasonal affective disorder. Great conversation with a very knowledgeable woman. I got so much out of them. I still do. Whenever I have some health issue, I'll call Cathy and say, what can you suggest about this or that and the other thing? So listen in, and I'll be back in 2021 with a whole lot of interesting people for you to listen to. This has been Mark. I'm so glad the year's over, and I'll see you soon. Good evening, Cathy.
Hi, Mark. It's still light here, fortunately.
What time does it get dark there now with the time change?
About 5:30.
Oh, that's right. You're 3 hours ahead of us. No wonder it's still light.
It's 3 o'clock. Yeah.
It gets dark here at 5:32.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just odd because it's that I think we talked about that last time when we talked about depression. I like this time of year, but it's also I have a little bit of the seasonal affective disorder.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there are other reasons we see sadness going on right now, because in the autumn, the lung is the organ that's responsible for a lot of our perception of the world, and the lung is the organ that houses grief. So since grief is contained there, it's often expressed more, we feel it more during this time of year. So important to do as much forgiveness work as you can and let go of the past and the things that are maybe hurtful or painful. This is the time that they really come up and they're in your face.
Yeah.
Big time. So consider that a blessing that they're in your face, and look at them, try and heal them as best as you can, and that will make your transition into the next season, into winter, better. Another thing that I wanted to mention about autumn before we dive into the winter energy is a lot of people have trouble with their respiratory health during this time of year, again, lung time, but it's the hot versus, cold. Like here it's in the 80s in the day, and then it's like 40 at night. That's a huge difference in temperature for our bodies to be adjusting to. Mm-hmm. And it's like people don't know whether to wear a sweater or a tank top or turn the AC on or turn the heat on. And like honestly, some days I've done both. I've had fans on in the day and then the heater on at night. And that variation, if the lungs are a little on the weak side, if they're vulnerable, is hard to adjust to. So that's a pretty normal thing I'm seeing. I bought pears at the farmer's market today, and just a reminder, pears and pear juice are one of the best foods to help the lungs, to help strengthen the lungs, and they're in season right now. So,
well, I'll make a note of that. I was going to say too, with the hot and cold thing, also is that like here the apartment buildings, most of them, especially the older ones, we have steam heaters, and the heat it gets extremely dry in the apartments.
Yes.
I just finally got a humidifier after 20 years of telling myself I finally got a humidifier because it's a shock. It'll be sort of hot and dry in a building, an office building or an apartment, and then you go outside and it's cold, and so it's the same thing. It's this
Right.
constantly encountering different temperatures and also different humidities.
Yet dryness is one of the factors that's often problematic for people in the fall. I tend to get a dry cough from being a teacher for so many decades, and all that talking that dries out the lungs. Let me mention a few things of foods. Pears, I already suggested, that helps with the dryness, but also if you can tolerate dairy products, yogurt and kefir are very wonderful for moistening that throat, moistening the lungs, and spinach and soy milk and the oily fish. And then something like seaweed soups. Those would all be great to be having when you're having the challenge dealing with the dryness.
Okay.
Yeah. So we move into winter in December, but a lot of people are challenged in their health once the winter time arrives. So it's often a good idea to start doing the winter foods to help strengthen the kidneys early in December, as opposed to waiting until the season changes.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese kidney, let me talk just a minute about that. The Chinese kidney includes much more than just those water filtration organs that we think of in our low back area. The kidney in Chinese medicine is the root of the body. It's the source of yin and yang. It's the pilot light in the body. And when I feel people's pulses and I feel the kidney positions, it's an indicator of your vitality and the strength of your constitution. So a lot of people are challenged with kidney deficiencies, and some of the common problems I see, people that are aging more rapidly than they would like to be, or maybe is sort of normal, is associated with the kidneys. Another big association with the kidneys in Chinese medicine would be adrenals, and the adrenals deal with stress,
Mm-hmm.
help our bodies deal with stress. So many people have so much stress, and the kidney is the organ system in Chinese medicine that we would want to support for adrenals that are really burned out. So the foods that we think about to help the kidneys be stronger are ones that are dark in color. So black beans, black sesame seeds, dried cherries, really dark greens like those kales that are really dark. Those are all foods that are going to be strengthening to the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing we think about in the winter diet is it's so much colder. So we obviously aren't going to be doing a lot of salads and watermelon and smoothies. That's the wrong direction. We want soups and stews, and if you enjoy spices and cooking with spices, this is the time to do it. So stewing dried fruits with some of those warming spices like cinnamon and ginger and nutmeg, the ones we love to smell when they're cooking. Those are all great ones to be using in this time leading up to the winter time
Mm-hmm.
to strengthen the kidneys. Some other foods that are great for the kidneys, all of the animal proteins. In some traditions, they will primarily eat animal foods in the wintertime and not so much in the other seasons. But in the wintertime, this is the time we want to be more thinking about storing, conserving our energy, kind of building it up so that we have a reserve, and we aren't going to be able to be as active as we normally are in other months, often because of the cold.
Mm-hmm.
One of the the other things to think about in the winter time is that this is a really great time to go inwards spiritually, mentally, emotionally. It's a time when we can really look inside and look at our values and reevaluate. So it's a time for introspection, and it's a time for us to be really receptive to those parts of ourselves, and the more that we're able to get into that energy of the winter time, the healthier we will be.
Well,
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that kind of, I can identify with that as a cycle, because I tend this time of year to do that, to start reflecting and thinking, well, what do I want to plant and cultivate for the, that will come to fruition next year or start to bloom next year?
Yes, absolutely. That's you're right in sync with the seasons. I mean, if you think about how crazy people get around Thanksgiving and Christmas, and what are they doing during that time of year, they're doing the opposite of being in harmony or, with the winter energy, being outgoing and overdoing and stressing themselves out, as opposed to going more internally. It's the time to go more internally, and it's a time that often people feel a little sad and depressed, as that's a normal part of the contemplative time of year. But it will pass, and then spring will be here, and we'll talk about that on another day.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing I think this time of year can be stressful for people, at least for me, is because I've always felt like there was just a lot of cultural pressure to conform to an idea of Christmas, and everybody buys everybody things. There's just all of this stuff going on that feels almost coercive.
It is. It's also corrosive. Yeah, I don't go outside my little world very much during those winter months. The hustle bustle and the craziness, it could suck you in really pretty easily. So I stay away from the malls around this time of year, but it's starting early. It's like I went shopping the other day for some dog products, and Christmas decorations were everywhere, and it wasn't even Halloween yet.
Right, yeah. They're just sooner and sooner.
Yes.
Well, Cathy, it's been another wonderful health listen with you on this one, on a good one on the winter. Perfect timing. And we will speak again soon in a couple of weeks on another topic.
All right. Stay warm.
Thank you. You too.